Hi, hello, and welcome. I'm Lady Celine, and today we are starting Chapter 6 of Chaos Head Noah. I'm very excited to be continuing with this. We learned a lot of little pieces of information last time to kind of give us some context on what's going on. So, first of all, is the GE rate. It's this force that I guess enacts upon people or makes them it makes them more suggestible, makes them more likely to do something that they wouldn't normally do. They were comparing it to lunacy, the literal phenomenon of there being more crimes on a full moon. So something about the city of Shibuya has this increased GE rate, this increased likelihood that its citizens could start acting crazy. Now, on the other hand, we have the Nozomi group. The Nozomi group are the ones that are leading the Noah project, which we don't really know a whole lot about yet, but I'm hoping we're going to see more of that since Chapter 6 is called Noah. But what they're doing is they're looking into blind spots of sorts, this area of our perception where things kind of phase out and then phase back in. Like they gave the example of that visual with the two dots, and how when you come in a certain distance, the one dot kind of erases itself, but then you keep coming in closer and it shows back up again. So they're looking into how to use these blind spots to affect people. Now, for what end, we don't really know, but I'm guessing that's where the visual realization technology and stuff that Takumi has been researching will come into play. I know I'm excited to learn more, so let's jump right into it. We're starting strong with Bon and the police department. All right. If it were a day like any other, getting released from a lengthy meeting should have put Bon Yasuji in a good mood. However, today was not a normal day. The detective removed himself from his peers, moved to the nearest window, and attempted irritably to call his junior. Suwa, his partner, had not shown up to today's meeting. I get one to play hooky on this, but did you really have to leave me to go it alone? Damn kid, Bon thought to himself. Oh yeah, there was the whole cell phone attack that seemed to affect not only Takumi, but people in Yua's class. At first glance, Suwa may have appeared light-hearted, but in actuality he was quite the diligent man and took his job very seriously. With this being Bon's opinion of him, what had happened today was quite the shock. He had attempted to call him several times, but it always went to voicemail. Ever since he had heard a fairly unsettling story from Momose 2 days prior, Bon had been faced with constant feeling of uneasiness. And today, only more troubles had been added to the pile. There was the incident with Suwa, but that was not all. When Bon was reporting about the GE rate earlier this morning, he was immediately shot down by Matsunaga. "We don't have time for crackpot theories," his superior said. "Could you not add to the pile, kid? I've had enough for 1 week." Bon waved his fan at his face repeatedly and let out a small sigh. And right when he did, the call connected, and he heard the voice of his junior on the other end. "Sir, it's you." "There you are, you schmuck! Where the hell have you been?" The reception was extremely poor. Which part of the countryside did Suwa lose himself in? Bon thought, scratching his head. "So, I'm interrupts my way, you know?" "Huh? What are you saying? Where are you?" As Bond shouted into the receiver, Sua's voice disappeared on the other end, replaced by a continuous rustling sound. How about now? Can you hear me? Yeah, I can. So where the hell did you... Well, I thought I'd do things my way for a bit, so I went back and asked around. Uppity little... The way Sua acted on his own without getting permission was not something that was worthy of praise. However, Bond could not help but smile wryly to himself, as he, too, was taking unauthorized actions even now. He considered that perhaps he was a bad influence on his junior. I might be close to getting my hands on a clue. It'll be conclusive evidence as to who's the real new-gen culprit. Oh, conclusive evidence! Okay, I'm willing to hear it. What? The color in Bond's eyes shifted. Keep that top secret, though. I might be mistaken. It doesn't matter. Just get your rear back here right now, you hear me? No, I've got to dig some more. What? You talking back? Ease up. I've got... Sua? Sua! Uh-oh. Oh god, what's happening? Right at that moment, the area below Bond's feet began to shake. An earthquake? The shaking gradually increased in intensity. It was hard to even stand up straight. Unable to maintain his balance for any longer, Bond got down low to the floor. It's a big one. The other detectives, who at first seemed to be underestimating the seriousness of the situation, all quickly moved under their tables. The clock fixed to the wall, the paper cups and pens atop the tables, the projection equipment, they all crashed to the floor one by one. The two whiteboards standing side by side near the podium fell to the ground as well. It's like being stuck in some insane turbulence. That was how it felt to Bond. It felt like the ground was disappearing beneath him. His entire body was being swung left and right by the shaking. It seemed to have a seismic intensity of around 5 or 6. Has the Great Kanto earthquake finally arrived? Of all times for it to hit, it hits now? Immediately, after thinking that, a fierce pain shot through Bond, causing him to groan out in pain. It felt as if he had taken a violent blow to the head. But he had not been physically struck by anyone. It was simply a severe headache. Ah! Suddenly, a scream echoed throughout the conference room. Gritting his teeth, Bond looked up to see one of the detectives gripping his head as he writhed in agony. And then, like a lifeless doll, he fell to the ground with a thump. Most of the other detectives were gripping their heads as well, their faces contorted in pain. What was this headache that bore no resemblance to any he had experienced before? Whether it was connected to the earthquake, there was no way for Bond to know. Eventually, the shaking gradually subsided. With his vision blurred, Bond looked out the window. Everything was covered in a milky white light. A light so dazzling Bond could no longer keep his eyes open. So yeah, this is happening all across Shibuya at least. And we're back with Taku. Whoa. As I opened my eyes, I felt a pain sharp enough to crack my skull open. I found myself slumped over in the middle of my room. I tried to get up, but the pain in my head suddenly shot through the rest of my body, and I nearly fainted in the agony. I let out a pained groan. After 5 full minutes of pure, writhing torture, the pain receded slightly, and I managed to stand up by using the leg of my bed to support myself. I wiped off the cold sweat on my forehead with my hand. My room was completely devastated. It was as if a tornado had ripped through it. All my waifus lined up on the shelf had toppled over, and some had even fallen off the shelf entirely. The bed was now sitting at an angle, and the piles of eroge and packages had crumbled to the floor and scattered everywhere. What the hell had happened? If I remembered correctly, there had been a phone call that had played the melody of You May Pass, before then transitioning into something like an ambulance siren. It was exactly the same as last time. That's right. Right when the buzzer had sounded, I'd heard the ground roar, and immediately after that, my whole body felt like it was boiling and melting. And then, I couldn't remember a damn thing. It was all completely blank. Oh God. Was it an EM wave attack from Shogun? What if Shogun was capable of something similar to what was in the patent I'd found? Just the thought alone sent a chill down my spine. While trying my best to endure my headache, I looked up at the ceiling. Of course, there wasn't anything to see up there. But if he was reading my mind, he'd have to be using a satellite that'd be in orbit way up there. There's no way. That isn't possible. But considering what Senna had told me before, that patented system could already be in use. Maybe it was in use and a few people were already abusing it. And maybe Shogun was among them. No, there was no way. It was way too far-fetched. There was no way an old fart like him with one foot in the grave would have private access to a satellite. Unless he was one of the key persons behind a top-secret black project sanctioned by the government? Scaring myself with my own delusions wasn't helping anything. Since something had actually happened, I decided to look up what the hell it was online. Still fighting my headache, I crawled toward my computer. Huh? The computer should have still been on. The monitor should have been displaying a wallpaper with Seratan on it, but it was pitch black. I hadn't set it up to automatically go into sleep mode, so it wouldn't make any sense for it to do that. I was feeling dizzy. It was as if I had no strength left in my body. Even standing up took almost everything I had. Gritting my teeth, I attempted to move the mouse around. No response. Next, I tried to press the power button. After a second, the hard disk started, emitting its typical scratching noise. I sank down in my chair. As I was waiting for my PC to boot, I frantically grabbed my phone, which was still on my desk. I checked the time.
13時
Huh? 1 p.m.? Before I'd gotten that phone call, what time had it been back when I was browsing the Ayase stuff on 8chan? When I tried using my brain, the stabbing pain coursing through it got even worse. Think, the time. Remember the time. It couldn't have been. Yeah, it hadn't been noon yet. Which meant
1時間以上も
I've been unconscious for over an hour? Or maybe I'd been sleepwalking, and I'd ended up wandering off somewhere else for an hour?
僕は無遊病じゃない
No, I'm not a sleepwalker. I shook my head violently, trying to stop thinking about things that would make me sink back into negative bullshit. As I did so, my vision wobbled from the pain still hammering in my head. It was like a lump of lead was sitting in the middle of my skull. And when I looked at my PC monitor, I saw...
おい
What? Hey,
マジで
what the hell? I don't know a lot of this, but I'm seeing beginning dump of physical memory, bumping physical memory to disk. No way. The hard disk data was corrupted? Check with your hardware vendor for any BIOS updates. Disable BIOS memory options such as caching or shadowing. If you need to use safe mode to remove or disable components, restart your computer. Yeah, I'll just take his word for it. The hard disk data was corrupted?
嘘だ。
You're
そんな
kidding
のあり
me.
えない。あっ
There's
ちゃ
no
ダメだ。
way.
そんなことになったら
If this is for
全てが終わ
real,
る。
this is the end of everything. It was where I stored my giga-sized collection of R18 Moe pics. My Eroge save data. All my bookmarks for sites I browse daily. My minimum attendance chart. And the thing I treasured the most. My ESO save data. I mean, it seems to be an online game. Would they not have that saved to like a server somewhere? Maybe? You're telling me everything's gone? Fuck. I wanted to cry out in frustration. I wanted to smash my keyboard in anger. I wanted to kick the wall with everything I had. Before I did anything, though, I needed to check if I could restore it. But my whole body was still heavy, and my headache refused to go away. All I could do was bite my lip and sink deeper into my chair. It was over. My life was over. Losing my ESO data meant I had no reason left to live. Nothing mattered anymore. It had all burned away. Just kill me. Wait a sec, Taki! With an angelic smile on her face, Sera-tan gently called for me from atop my desktop. Call your jets! Since ESO's an online game, shouldn't the save data all be on a server somewhere? By server, you mean the dev server? So, even if your computer did kick the bucket, Nightheart's data should still be on the server, right-o? Oh, you're right. I was so dizzy and confused I'd forgotten even the basics. It felt like I'd finally found a ray of hope shining through the endless despair. I knew I could depend on my waifu. I'd still have to give up my treasured pics and MP3s that I hadn't backed up, though. I needed to start reformatting the OS as quickly as possible. And I wanted to see with my own two eyes that my ESO data was safe. Though, in order to do that, the headache that was still torturing me had to stop. Unfortunately for me, the pain didn't feel like it would be going anywhere anytime soon. Is everyone else just acting normal? Whoa! S15 earthquake in Shibuya, over 200 casualties. And this isn't the first earthquake. There was an earthquake several months back that kind of kicked off or was the catalyst to all of the new gen incidents. So this must somehow be related. There was rarely ever a moment in which the screens of Shibuya Station were not colored with advertisements, video clips, or music videos from the latest popular artists. And yet, currently, the screens were instead displaying a female anchor with a grave expression on her face. It was an ongoing, special TV broadcast. Sensational words decorated the top left of the screen. S15 earthquake in Shibuya, over 200 casualties. Earthquakes were not particularly unexpected in Japan. The Tokyo metropolitan area had already fallen victim to several seismic intensity 5 earthquakes over the years. However, as the media gathered more and more information about the incident, the sheer number of casualties made it clear that this was no ordinary earthquake. It was especially peculiar when compared to the 2005 earthquake, also seismic intensity 5, where no fatalities had been reported. Oh, it's SI5, not S15, seismic intensity 5. Okay. Moreover, the epicenter was Shibuya, a city which was already the center of attention in Japan due to the new Gen incidents. There had already been an earthquake in Shibuya approximately 3 months prior. It was a seismic intensity 3 quake, and 8 people had died. Maybe Shibuya's cursed. That was what the people observing the breaking news about the latest earthquake were thinking, even if they did not say it out loud. In any case, each station had started their special broadcast right when the earthquake hit. Information was having trouble circulating, and the total death count was still unclear. Nonetheless, the female anchor continued to report. Reading from a stack of papers, she declared, "The Fire and Disaster Management Agency has confirmed 31 deaths, and that number is expected to rise as they continue to aid those affected. The causes of death remain unknown, but Furthermore, various reports describe the mysterious white light appearing immediately after the earthquake had hit. According to these reports, the light had been accompanied by a massive shock wave, and it had turned the sky completely white." The cameras spread across Shibuya's Scramble Station had caught the aforementioned light on tape, and, after the earthquake ended, nothing but pure white footage was displayed on loop on the jumbotrons located there. The discoloration that had appeared alongside the earthquake had not simply been a dull white, however. It had been utterly blinding. Shibuya had been momentarily enveloped in light, the sheer glare forcing each and every resident's eyes shut. If this were an era of war, the people would have undoubtedly believed it to have come from a nuclear weapon. As a matter of fact, there were some people who claimed to have spotted a white mushroom cloud floating a few hundred meters above Shibuya, though it was quick to vanish. No one knew what the origin of the light was, nor if it was connected to the earthquake. I mean, it has to be, right? And then, just as mysteriously as its arrival, the white sky had returned to its original color in less than an hour. And now a dull light blue lay above the people of Shibuya. The asphalt of Dogonzaka was very slightly cracked, its damage only millimeters wide. And the multi-tenant buildings, together with many other structures along Center-gai, had all grown small crevices across their walls. I mean, that's dangerous. If another earthquake hits, it could destroy the whole city at that point. The reformatting of my OS had taken nearly 2 hours to finish, and yet my headache still hadn't gone away. I'd even lost consciousness a few times from the pain. I'd passed out on my keyboard from exhaustion before, but today was the first time I'd literally passed out. On the plus side, though, the pain was way more bearable now that it had been 2 hours ago. I wet my throat with some cola, and then, summoning all my energy, stood up. I fixed my broken bed and made it level again. Then I cleaned my floor to the extent that I'd be able to walk around. It took a lot of effort to do because of how weak I was feeling, but it had to be done. I wouldn't have been able to leave my own room otherwise. If Shogun were to attack again, not that I actually knew if it was him this time, I would have been trapped and unable to escape. In other words, I'd be completely fucked. I had to secure an escape route, or else. Once I'd finished reformatting my OS and cleaning my room, I went straight to the PC, installed ESO, and tried logging into Baselard. It worked. It worked. Nightheart isn't gone. My items and equipment are all here. Oh, thank God, thank God. I was so moved that I tried to get up and pump my fist in the air, but even that took too much energy, so I gave up halfway through. I couldn't have been more happy to see my other self alive and well. I'd thought he was gone forever. Okay, time for the next step. While it was definitely a huge load off my shoulders, I still wanted to try and figure out what exactly had even happened. not to mention demand compensation and a formal apology. It had seemed like an earthquake, but there were way too many things that didn't add up if that were true. I looked for Grim inside Baselard, but he was nowhere to be found. I went to check the chat room, but since I'd lost my bookmarks, I had trouble finding it. When I eventually did, though, I discovered that Grim wasn't there either. Of all times for him to have gone AWOL, why now? With no options left, I had no choice but to head straight to Taboo itself. On it, I found the following article: over 200 casualties in Shibuya. So there really had been an earthquake. It had been a seismic intensity 5 quake, and loads of people had died. The casualties were currently set at 200, but the article stated that the number may go even beyond that. There were also reports of Shibuya's sky turning pure white for a short period of time, as well as a giant mushroom cloud, though no one knew if either of those were connected to the earthquake. The earthquake was also being discussed on 8chan, with people posting things like more Shibuya stuff or Shibuya is over. There was also a video uploaded on there showing footage of Scramble Crossing that had been taken from its various surveillance cameras. This wasn't just an earthquake, right? When it happened, I'd been hit with a terrible headache, and it wasn't just your normal headache. It had felt like my head was boiling. And even now, almost 2 hours later, I was still experiencing throbbing pain and fatigue. Maybe that's how you'd end up if you got stuck in a microwave. If I thought about it that way, my delusion that Shogun was going after me with EM wave attacks might not have been so far-fetched. Right at that moment, I heard a familiar sound coming from my PC. It was the notification tone that played whenever someone entered the chat room. Grim might have joined. I wanted to get the full story of what had happened, so I opened up the chat room. It's Shogun! Eek! The moment I saw that name, a shriek escaped my mouth. What was with this timing? Could he actually read my mind after all? The hand I was using to hold the mouse was trembling. My entire body was frozen in fear, overriding even my headache. Just looking at Shogun's name made me feel sick, but I couldn't look away. I wanted to close the chat room, but I was in such a state of shock, my mind and body felt like they had been ripped apart. I tried desperately to move the mouse, but my body simply refused to listen to me. I felt chills on the nape of my neck. I was being watched. God's gaze. Or maybe it wasn't God. Maybe it was Shogun's gaze being shot down from an orbiting satellite. Just leave me alone. I wanted to run away. But where would I run? It didn't matter where I went. Even if I went to the very edges of Japan, he'd still catch me. It's been a long time. That was the first thing Shogun said to me. He'd said it like he was just casually saying hello to a friend he hadn't seen in a while. But I know for a fact that I had never, ever considered this guy a friend. My teeth sank into my lip as I stared at the words written across the monitor. However, instead of making me freeze out of fear, the message from Shogun instead sent me grabbing for my phone. It was past 3 p.m. At this hour, classes were probably still in session, but surely my situation wasn't hopeless. If Rimi was here, she could do something. That's what I wanted to believe. I went to my address book, although it wasn't much of a book considering how empty it was, and called Rimi's phone number. Save me, Rimi. Do you hate me? Rimi, quick! Pick up! It was hard to breathe. I couldn't think straight. Rimi wasn't picking up. There was no voice on the other end, only the monotonous dialing sound repeating endlessly. Why? Whenever I'm in trouble, you're always there for me. So why aren't you answering? I have a present for you. A present? Okay. Ooh, what if it's the psychiatrist's brain? They're just gonna mail the brains to his house. You're gonna send me some more disgusting shit? And this time you're gonna blame me for it. You're gonna pin me as the new gen culprit. No, anything but that. It's not me. I'm not the culprit. I felt like a fish that had been ripped out of the water. I was losing oxygen. My mind was going fuzzy. My only ray of hope left was Rimi. I grasped my phone tighter and tighter, praying with all my might to the other end of the call. She picked up! Save me! Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice message says, I hope it pleases you. Voicemail? That couldn't be. Okay, we're gonna go positive because I am like actually a little scared right now. I'm a little scared, so we're gonna go positive for my own sake as well as Taku's. Discouraged, I hung up the phone. I wrapped my arms around myself. Before I knew it, my body had started trembling. I was more afraid of Shogun than I thought I was. But why wouldn't I be? He was a homicidal maniac posing as a handicapped person, and he'd already committed 5 unspeakable crimes. And I was the next one in his sights. Somebody save me! Taku! Rimi came for me! I think, maybe, possibly. Rimi! It was as if my prayers had been answered, like the cries of my heart had been heard. Rimi really did always appear whenever I was in trouble. She opened the door and leapt into my room. Rimi, save me. Rimi looked straight at me, then quickly examined our surroundings. Immediately realizing that the source of terror was my PC, she began typing on the keyboard with an angry expression. Shut your mouth, stupid! Leave Taku alone or I'll kick your butt! You have to be ruthless at times like this. Rimi looked back at me and smiled gently. If you're real upfront with them, the bullies will back off a lot easier than you think. Was that really how it worked? Rimi was only that reckless because she didn't know much about the internet. Being that blunt would only make the other person even madder. And here, the other person was Shogun. As I stared at the monitor with bated breath, Shogun sent yet another message. You're dead. And left the chat. Yikes. The room went silent. What the hell? I knew it. It really had pissed him off. The tone of his last message was very clearly different. He's all talk, I promise. It's not like some random person would take that personally enough to come barging in here or something. More importantly, are you doing okay, Taku? Sorry I missed your call. I was already almost here, so I figured I'd just wait till I saw you in person. After the earthquake hit, I was so worried about you that I ran here as fast as I could. It took her 2 hours? And I'm glad I did. While I was listening to Rimi's voice, I couldn't take my eyes off the monitor. His message had left me deeply unsettled. You're dead.
なんてこと。
Why the hell? But I'm here now, so everything's A-okay. You don't have to worry about a thing.
なんてことしてくれたんだよ。
Why the hell did you do that?
殺される。
He'll kill me. He's gonna kill me.
早く逃げないと。
I have to get out of here fast. Calm down. He's not gonna kill you. You're overthinking. Uh-oh. 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 Suddenly, Rimi went silent. Her eyebrows furrowed, and she looked up at the ceiling.
どうしたの?
What's wrong? Whose eyes are those eyes? Her voice was a soft murmur. Suddenly, Rimi's face contorted, and she grabbed at her head with both hands. My head. It hurts. Huh? It hurts. It feels like it's gonna split in two. Unable to endure the pain anymore, Rimi fell to the floor. She was shaking her head madly. Where did this come from? Oh. Don't tell me. My gaze shot toward the ceiling. No, not the ceiling. Toward the sky, beyond the ceiling. Toward an artificial satellite that might or might not exist. Was Shogun attacking? It hurts! It hurts! It hurts! It hurts! My head! It's gonna split open! Ah! Plip, a drop of blood fell from Rimi's nose. Suddenly, her half-moans, half-screams ceased. Rimi's body shook violently as she staggered, and then she dropped to the floor head first. Rimi? There was no answer. She didn't even twitch. He'd killed her. Using a satellite, using EM waves, Shogun had killed Rimi. How? That had been so quiet. He'd killed Rimi with neither sound nor smell, without even a hint of his presence. It had been way too quiet, but that only made it even more terrifying. There was no escape. I kneeled to the floor and shook Rimi's shoulder. Hey, wake up, Rimi. There was no escape. No matter where I went on Earth, there would be no escape. Don't leave me alone. Wherever I would try to flee, Shogun would be able to attack from high above in the sky. This can't be. This can't be real. I'm hoping that it's not. Oh! Hey, we're back! Okay, so it looks like Rimi did not show up. She did not die, as far as we're aware. And Shogun left the chat room after saying, I hope it will please you. When I returned to my senses, I was still in front of the monitor. The answer Rimi had written earlier had vanished. And Shogun's "You're dead" had too. I looked back toward the rest of my room, and Rimi's body was nowhere to be found. I just want to say that was not wavy. Again, I think the wavies are meant to signify when Takumi is aware that he's having a delusion. So even though we're deciding which delusion he has, he wasn't quite aware that it was going to happen at that moment. That's my thought there. I felt relieved that Rimi wasn't actually dead, but I was disappointed that she hadn't shown up. Why? Why wasn't she here yet? I was absolutely terrified. I needed her now more than ever. Shogun had already left the chat room. All that remained were those 4 lines. I didn't want to see any of it, so I hurriedly closed the chat room while Shogun wasn't in it. My body was still trembling. Shogun was trying to provoke me. Was it fun fucking with me like this? Had I been chosen as the next victim, and this was a means to that end? Or was I just the perfect person to pin his crimes on? Someone, save me! Save me, please! I stared at the post-awakening version Seratan as if I was clinging to my only refuge. Being alone is scary. I didn't want to be alone. I wanted somebody to be by my side. I wanted someone to protect me. Right, there's school. If I go to school, Rimi will be there. I couldn't bear staying here alone with my spiraling anxiety. I took off my worn-out sweatshirt that I had usually wore around the house, threw on my uniform, and left my base. Once I was hit with the cold air of the outside world, my headache ever so slightly subsided. The city had a more restless atmosphere to it than usual, probably due to the earthquake from earlier. I didn't know that for sure, though. In the distance, the sound of sirens continued to echo endlessly, but I wasn't sure if they were from ambulances or fire trucks. Could have been both. Yamate Dori, which was 1 block away from me, was completely jammed up. Traffic was bumper to bumper. There were multiple visible accidents, most head-on, and the cars involved had simply been left abandoned on the road, their drivers nowhere to be found. Those abandoned cars were the cause of the traffic jam. The other drivers were honking their horns like crazy. As I was wandering the streets to get to school, I saw a dog crossing the road, barking. It was a chihuahua sprinting at full speed, dragging its leash behind its small body. Its eyes were bloodshot, and a large amount of drool was dripping from its open mouth. It had probably gotten separated from its owner. As I absent-mindedly watched it get farther and farther away, I tripped on something and nearly fell over. The asphalt was cracked, and one section of the road was ever so slightly lower than the rest. It had most likely come from the earthquake. Stopping right there, I looked up at the sky. There were a few white clouds drifting calmly across the dull blue light. Just after the earthquake had hit, something similar to an aurora had formed in the sky and tainted it pure white, but the traces of it had already disappeared. This isn't right. This isn't Shibuya. I couldn't calm down in the slightest. Not just because of the earthquake, and not because of the headache either. It wasn't just those, but a certain urge that was threatening to overtake me. For some reason, walking around like this, it made me feel like I wanted to kill someone. By the time I got to the school gate, the anxiety and sense of dread I'd been feeling were increasing by the second. I had the chills, my body wouldn't stop shivering, and my headache was coming back. When I looked closely, I noticed a group of students formed around the third-year building. I looked for Rimi within them. For some odd reason, everyone was looking toward the top of the building, and even those who weren't soon followed suit, almost like a bunch of lemmings. Oh god, is someone on the roof? I bet, is it Yua? Maybe? Oh, Taku! Misumi-kun rushed over to me. I should ask him where Rimi is. Look who decided to come to school today. Actually, I'll save the pissing you off for later. He looked gravely serious, and his face was pale. Seeing Misumi-kun like this was very unusual. What the hell was going on? Things are bad right now, man. Real bad. Things are bad? What did that mean? What was bad? She was sick, right? People probably found out she was sick in the head, and it made her crazier. She was saying earlier that she could fly. This is gonna be gnarly, real gnarly. I know I shouldn't, but I really want to see someone die. It's gonna be crazy gory. It'll be awesome. Hurry up and jump already. I could hear things like that coming from everywhere around me. Bruh, that is so fucked up. Don't tell me. I had a bad feeling about this. Fearfully following the gazes of the other students, I looked up at the school building. Okay, wait. I'm gonna change my guess to Ayase. I think that's who's up there because she is the one with a history of mental illness, and that's kind of what they're talking about. But she'll survive. She'll be fine. Yeah, she's got her sword. She'll be fine. On the edge of the rooftop stood a single girl. In her hand, just like during the concert, was a D-sword. With a pose emblematic of praying to God in the heavens above, on the edge of the roof, stood Kishimoto Ayase. I mean, I'm just kidding. I am a little scared for her. The shadow of the wicked heart lurks within that body, a presence which the eye cannot perceive. Kishimoto Ayase felt the wind blowing. The cold wind brought with it a faint hint of winter. Her expression inundated with pain, huge drops of sweat formed on her face as she faced the chilled gales. Even if I try to split asunder, perpetual nightmares, alas, take shape. The Suimei Academy rooftop was enclosed by a 2-meter-high wire fence. Ayase was standing on the other side of it, occupying a space of only around 30 centimeters. 10 minutes had passed since she had first started standing there. One step and she would fall from the roof of the 4-story school building. Many students were gathered below Ayase, watching her with bated breath. And eventually become a sword. One that will tear this body apart. Although the police and emergency services had already been contacted, they had yet to arrive, likely due to the earthquake that had only hit a few hours prior. The teachers were running around in a panic, scrambling to get gym mats ready in case of the worst possible outcome. Should they bear the shield of apathy, ye's souls shall escape the flames of war. And yet Ayase stood completely still, unperturbed by the ruckus below. Or rather, she had deliberately cut herself off from the rest of the world that lay beneath her. As she gazed up to the sky, Ayase closed her eyes, her pose emulative of that of a maiden praying to the heavens. Due to her good sense of balance, the wind did not manage to sway her slender body. A fact made all the more impressive by her grasping a sword as long as she was tall. On a battlefield reborn, come those with malice in their hearts, ill will without compare. The sword, her D-sword, was blinking with a pale blue light. As if synchronized with it, Ayase's labored breathing continued, and then she began to murmur once more. When the time comes, malice shall possess its own will, and thus reveal its true form. The verses she unfolded through her murmurs soon vanished into the wind. Ayase opened her eyes and gazed at the crimson sky spreading over the buildings of Shibuya. This world is laden with malicious delusions. Everyone thrills from the misery of others. Try as I might to close my eyes, to cover my ears, it is futile. For ever so long now, they have never left me. As she breathed this soliloquy into the air, Ayase pulled her gigantic sword to her chest and gently embraced it with both arms. Curiously, the sharp sword did not leave a single injury on her. I wanted to return to the other world, where the greater will resides. And to accomplish that feat, I hewed my heart, accepting it all within, dreaming to be the vessel of chaos. Ayase's face twisted in sorrow. Tears quietly spilled from her eyes. Droplets, flowing voicelessly, were all swiftly carried away by the wind. However, Gladiol quickens increasingly so. There is no longer any time left. I cannot find them. I cannot find them anywhere. Not Heaven's Gate, nor the Wise, nor the Guide, nor the 7 divine punishments. Are the Black Knights even real? I have already recited an unending number of verses. If that was insufficient for you... Oh, greater will. Ayase spread her arms out far and wide, as if trying to embrace the sky itself, as if trying to show her presence to God on high. Then I shall fly. The pale blue pulsation of her sword intensified. Ayase closed her eyes once more, and in that moment, a final tear dropped from the corner of her eye. I beg of you, O greater will, take this vessel as an offering. Take my soul away with you. And then, without a moment's hesitation, the girl, with nothing there to support her, took a step forward. Toward the place I must return. She felt the cold caressing her cheek. Her gaze fell to the earth. Oh, that's a door. Looming closer as she fell was a door, a gate, and on the other side of it was the sky Ayase desired. Okay, but what's everyone else gonna see? I couldn't do anything but watch it unfold. After Ayase spread her arms out, she slowly stepped into the thin air, as if taking a step down on a non-existent staircase. Screams began to build among the spectators, coalescing into one gigantic roar. With nothing left to support her, Ayase, like a puppet whose strings had been cut, fell head-first towards the ground. Everything appeared to be in slow motion. Ayase's body was going to crash to the ground. Her descent was incredibly slow. But she was definitely falling. She was gonna die. Ayase was gonna die. I couldn't do anything to stop it. I couldn't save someone from falling that high. and there was nothing but concrete below her. It would crush all her bones, rupture all her organs, and make her dark blood and gray matter spurt out all over the ground. If only there was a flower bed or something. If only there was something soft below her. If there was, maybe it could save her. I didn't want to see someone die. As I went to close my eyes, for an ephemeral moment, I felt chills on the nape of my neck. I looked behind me. Not a soul was standing there. Everyone was either looking down, averting their eyes, or looking up at her. Whose eyes are those eyes? A sound shook the air. The sound of a person crashing down. It was the first time I had ever heard that sound. But it had a lot less impact than I was expecting. What the? Next to me stood Misumi-kun, his eyes wide as dinner plates. I expected his gaze to be tainted by dread, but the way he stared at the place Ayase had fallen was one of surprise, not horror. And it wasn't just Misumi-kun that was like that. All of the spectators looked like they had no idea what was going on. They were all lost for words. She's alive. Huh? She was alive? Ayase wasn't getting up. I couldn't tell if her bones were crushed. I couldn't tell if her organs had ruptured. But her gray matter hadn't spurted everywhere, nor had her dark blood. I just want to say, even if you fell into a flower bed, that impact probably would break your body. A small, feeble groan escaped from Ayase's mouth. She was alive. She seemed to be unconscious, and she wasn't moving, but she was alive. She was barely even injured. There was only a small drop of blood on her forehead. She had fallen from the rooftop. But there she was, lying there almost completely unharmed, lying atop a flower bed. A flower bed? Was there always a flower bed there? Nah, buddy. I mean, that's gotta be him, right? It appears there was quite the discrepancy between what we had envisioned and the actual results. I assure you, it was merely the first step toward evolution. You neglected to inform us that the number of fatalities would exceed 100. Was the plan flawed from the offset? No, sir. I would like the two of you to reflect upon the evolutionary process of mankind. I can acknowledge that evolution requires sacrifice. The deaths bear no importance to me. The critical issue is how it diverged from our plans. It has always been within expectations, on the basis of my internal predictions, that is. Then why didn't you inform us beforehand? In order to control information, preliminary arrangements are required. We're not sacrificing important resources, people and money, namely, to feed your eccentricity. Remember that. Rest assured, as I previously stated, everything is within expectations. Before long, there will be no need to endure the hardship of gathering votes for elections, nor will there be risks of prosecution for extorted political canvassing. Okay, we're getting some motivation here. The day we will transform Japan, No, the entire globe is drawing nearer. Be discreet, for if the Committee of 300 discovers our mutiny against them, our lives will be forfeit. I'm guessing this is also probably a fictional bit. Committee of 300. A secret organization shrouded in mystery, rumored to manipulate the world from behind the scenes. Oh, okay, so this is their Illuminati, basically. Composed of only 300 members, they are known as the Unseen Rulers. Their subordinates include the royalty of numerous nations, intelligence agencies, and large enterprises, with a focus on banking. They are all mere puppets of the 300, as are any other secret societies that often appear in conspiracy theories. It is said that almost the entire world is bent to their will, whether it be companies, police, research institutes, etc. However, their existence is only a rumor. The Committee of 300's ultimate goal is theorized to be the construction of the so-called New World Order under the Worldwide Human Domestication Project. Outside the few elite, 1 billion humans will be left behind, while all others are slaughtered. Those billion that survive will remain as slaves subject to the ruler's administration. Okay. I don't like that. I also just noticed a bunch of new... Yeah, a bunch of new tips that didn't really seem to show up last time. Ooh, see, okay, this is something that I was interested in, the total brain death. So there are 2 types of brain death. Total brain death, where the cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem all cease to function, and brainstem death, where only the brainstem ceases to function. A vegetative state is often misunderstood as a form of unconsciousness in which there is a loss of some or all cerebral functions, but in actuality, the brainstem and the cerebellum are still functional, and spontaneous breathing is possible as well. Even so, there is an extremely rare chance of recovery from a vegetative state. So wait, it's misunderstood as a form of unconsciousness, but the brainstem and cerebellum are both functional. Even though there are 2 types of brain death, where everything ceases to function and then only the brainstem, so a vegetative state is separate from that. Here we go. In Japan, there are laws and regulations in place to determine whether or not a person can be determined legally brain dead. The following 5 items are those regulations, each of which are checked twice with sufficient time between each check. The patient is in a deep coma, the pupils are dilated and fixed, there are no reflexes from the brainstem, the patient's brain waves are flat, and spontaneous breathing has ceased. Okay. Okay, but this is apparently some kind of mutiny against the Illuminati, the Committee of 300. Your duty is to act in accordance with the plan. Nothing more, nothing less. We will be the ones performing adjustments. I am well aware of this. No matter. Let us hear your report regarding the 2nd generation. Very well. You gentlemen will be pleased to hear the final results. Noah 2 is... Shit! We're just leaving on that? I want to know more about this Noah stuff and, you know, this 1st and 2nd generation. And that is going to do it for today, folks. I was thinking I might want to make these videos a little longer going forward. There are some chapters where it seems like not a lot is happening, so I kind of want to play around in the space between like an hour to an hour and a half, maybe add on an extra scene to some of these videos. But that was a lot of information, so we're just going to leave it there. process all of that for next time. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a like. If you didn't, put it in the comments. Tell me what I can do better. And subscribe. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, and I hope to see you in the next one.